Okay, I'm going to start. I hope everyone can hear me. Thank you so much. It's really amazing to be here today. I am very happy to thank JewishGen and the board and Avrami in particular. It is, I think, a real leap to go into crypto-Jewish genealogy. I think that there have been so many other times in the many years that I've been doing this that I have approached other organizations, and it's never been taken as, let's say, serious part of genealogy, and especially Jewish genealogy. And so I think that at this time, you know, Avrami, you and your board require an applause, because without you, I would never have been able to do this. For those that have never heard me, and I'm just going to take the elevator version of, I was personally able to trace my maternal lineage going back 1405, pre-Inquisition Spain and Portugal, and my paternal lineage to the 1100s in the Canary Islands. As I was doing this research, I was able to appreciate how quickly the resources died out in the 1800s and maybe the late 1700s. So when I started, nothing was online for this genre. And traveling around Latin America and Europe, I was able to pick up the old books, books that are out of print, books from 1893, 1850, books that were listing Inquisition data, and I started collecting them. And not only collecting them, and I must say, I wasn't doing this to share this with the world. I was doing this to try to find my own lineage. So basically, I started actually documenting and putting them into spreadsheets, putting all this stuff into spreadsheets until I had maybe, I don't know, 8,000 entries, and in an Excel spreadsheet, I had to make pivot tables. I was trying to make sense of trying to find my own lineage this way. At the end, with my own lineage, I was able to just do it in Spain via Inquisition records, but I started to see that there was nothing available, and I started to also understand that everything that had been written extensively, but for a small area of the world. In other words, if it's about the Curacao Jews in the Netherlands Antilles, there's exhaustive amount of information. Or let's say Suriname in South America, or in Amsterdam, or in the Kingdom of Aragon, or wherever, Canary Islands, exhaustive information in written word, nothing on the internet, and it was impossible to trace your own lineage unless you kind of looked at it on top, kind of like from a bird's eye view, and look down to try to make sense of it. So when I came to Avrami and I told him that I had all these spreadsheets, and they've been up for a long time on my website, but they didn't make much sense. So the idea was that those websites, those Excel sheets had to be put with a search engine, so that search engine, if you were looking for like the name Perez, that search engine could search across all of these Excel sheets that I had made and see how the Perez family had moved from place to place. So that brings us to today, the last several months, when I decided, Avrami and I decided we were going to do this together. I have been polishing and polishing and polishing and polishing all of the work that I have been doing for many, many years, almost 15. So if some of you see that some of these Excel spreadsheets are missing a little bit of information as far as sourcing, no problem. They will be fully sourced. And right now we had a date. We had to meet this date. We tried to get as much of the actual information as possible. So very soon, all the sources that everyone is wanting to have fully, so that you can go forward with your own research, you will be seeing it online. I am continuing to upload data. There is so much information that certain historians have given, let's say, an amount of how many Jews were in Spain and Portugal. And I actually have, whenever I speak, I always say very conservatively that there were 300,000, 100,000 that left for the Ottoman Empire or other lands, 100,000 that assimilated and got lost, and 100,000 that stayed, became crypto Jews, and either were Catholic for 500 years, like my family, because I returned to the Jewish people about 30 some years ago, but my family is still Catholic. That is the same with a lot of you that are in here today, and you're searching and you're looking for these roots. So basically, these historians had these estimates. Some say 1 million, some say. What I have been able to see from, as I said, I'm looking at it from the top now. I'm not just hyper focusing on St. Bart's or St. Eustatius or Curacao or Amsterdam. Anybody that does that just has this hyper focus. What I've been able to do is see it from on top and see the hundreds of thousands of people. I finished uploading the Sevilla, all the information from Sevilla, Spain, just a few nights ago. And at the end of the book, it says there were 241,000 that passed through the Inquisition of Sevilla. It may be the same people going back and forth, but it really is a staggering amount. I would not even venture to say how many there are. It's important to note that it is not just the search engine that we're going to talk about today. There is also a lot of reference material that I have written, and I think that the most important one, that when you get a chance, you go in there and you read, and Avrami in a few minutes will point on the website where it is. But basically, it's called Getting Started with Jewish Genealogy. I've made a short presentation and we'll cover a little bit, but you should know that basically you're going back to about 1381 or 1391, a good 100 years before the actual expulsion and a lot of the conversions. And 1391 was the largest moment in our history that Jews were converted. So if you can imagine, we're in 2020, this is 1391 we're talking about. And I know for a fact that my family was from the Jews of 1391. And why do I know that? I know that because I was able to go back to 1405. I didn't mean to go back to 1405. I found my Jewish ancestors at about 1545. I was already able to document that we were Jewish, but I kept going back and back and back, trying to look for my Jewish family name. The closest I ever got to finding that name would be the last name Halevi, but I don't play around with fairy tales or lores or it's very sexy to know your Jewish last name, but I really wanted to know, and I had to have it documented. So at 1405, I think you can kind of say I gave up. I had other things that were more pressing than to continue searching for my Jewish name. So if my name in 1405, it was Alvarez, and that is a Spanish name, as Spanish as it can be. So I know that my family was converted way before. So I would like to go over the presentation of Rami, if we could. Okay, can we start? Is that the beginning?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you now. Let me hear you. Can you talk a little bit? Because you were really breaking up.
Yes, I see your screen. Can you see the screen?
Okay, I'm good. You're still breaking up, by the way. I don't know what you can do about that. So crypto-Jewish genealogy is really like no other. Even for seasoned genealogists, delving into crypto-Jewish genealogy is a total turnaround of all your previous mindsets. So if you're already a genealogist, please forget everything you've ever learned, everything you've ever looked at when you're searching in other, let's say in other parts of genealogy, Jewish or not. So first thing I want you to do is I want you to forget everything that you heard from your family, the stories, the lores, the information that was passed down from all those abuelas, and make believe you know nothing. This will help you tremendously because it will allow you a free search into the past without getting stuck in a particular region or town. I have seen many people looking for their crypto-Jewish roots. People come to me all of the time for asking me questions. And the first half of the email is the whole family story about where they were and the abuelita lighting candles. And it's beautiful, these stories. I'm not saying they're not your stories. I'm just saying that for the purpose of really documenting your lineage, you're going to have to put these stories aside for a little while. So remember that we're attempting to go down 500 plus years of history and look at the underbelly of what everyone else is seeing. Why? The crypto Jews were doing just that. They were being crypto. They were hiding. So this is not really Sephardic genealogy. A lot of people argue. I've gotten, Avrami has gotten, and I have gotten a lot of comments as this has been going on, that once they moved into the New World, they were no longer crypto, they were Sephardic. And I agree with that 100%. For the purpose of this presentation and for the purpose of the collection, I am talking about crypto-Jewish roots. So even if the family showed up in Jamaica and they were openly practicing, and they had come from Amsterdam before that, they had come from Portugal before that. So if you want to go back to the 1400s, you're going to have to go back to where they were crypto, because after a certain time, they were crypto after 1492. So the reality is that yes, this is Sephardic genealogy. And when I say this is not, I mean, we are not discussing the Jews that went to the Ottoman Empire. That is a topic for another time. And honestly, I am not well versed in that at all. This collection is about the Jews that converted and became Catholics or other religions. Many are Catholics still today. And with this collection, they can trace their histories, and you can be able to see how they migrated from place to place. Next. Okay, so many of the sources, as I said, were located overseas in libraries, dissertations, and Inquisition records. These two first books from the region of Zamora in Spain, where my family is from, they were in the library on the provincial library of Zamora. It was never going to be up online. It was never going to be anywhere. All the things that I uploaded had primary sources. There was bibliographies. There was really documented. There's dissertations. There's academic articles. And I don't mean lately. I mean going all the way back to the 1800s. And like this last book to the right, this is a book that has not been digitized. I personally held it in my hands in the Canary Islands. There are some Inquisition documents in the Canary Islands. This particular book has the genealogies of people in the Inquisition. Hello, this is exactly, I couldn't copy anything from it. I couldn't take pictures. I wasn't allowed to do anything except what you see here. So as you can see, even though I have uploaded incredible amounts of information and, tried my best to get at sources, that even though these sources are online, for example, the sources from Amsterdam, those are online. However, they are not connected to anything else. So what I'm trying to do here is have a person have the ability, if they want to go from Portugal to Amsterdam, from Amsterdam to St. Eustatius, or down to the community that was there from Amsterdam Jews in Cayenne and Suriname, and be able to perhaps, if not follow the diaspora of their own family, they can follow the diaspora of the family name, which of course makes it much better if you happen to be a male, because the family names did change constantly. But at least you'll be able to follow the name, whereas a lot of the digitized material, as I said at the beginning, it's inside, it's there, it's online, but it's not attached to anything else. Next slide. Okay, you need to know the regions of each country. This is ground zero. So if you hope to have success, you're going to have to put aside a little bit the enthusiasm to start clicking around on this beautiful collection. And the collection is beautiful. What's even more beautiful is the search engine that JewishGen has made. But if you notice, there are many different regions. So yes, while the Jews moved around a lot, the crypto Jews and the people of the time, they were involved in heavy trade. People don't understand that everybody continued being involved in heavy trade. They were going to China, they were going to South America, they were getting pearls, they were bringing them back. A lot of people were in the slave trade. They were going to Africa, they were picking up slaves, they were bringing them to the New World. So there was a lot going on, but we're starting in ground zero. And ground zero is right in front of you because this is where it all began. So basically, you understand the regions, keep it next to you, and somebody that was living, let's say, all the way in the north, west of Spain, in Galicia, chances are that you won't find him all the way on the east in Barcelona. All of this are not rules are set in stone. It's just that you understand that about 95% of the people would be around their region or involved in trade. Next slide. Okay, rule of thumb, and that is to keep going west. Keep going west. You just saw Spain and you saw Portugal. Keep a map with you. Keep going west if you're looking for and following your family. When you find the sources with your family names, go west. And I think they made a movie that said go west or something like that. Of course, before anyone jumps, some people went east, but we're talking by and large, what I have been able to appreciate after decades of this is that they were going west. We know that people left Spain and they went to Bordeaux and they went to Venice, but normally from the crypto Jews, they were going west. They were going from Bordeaux, they were going to Antwerp. From Antwerp, they were going to Amsterdam, then they went to London. In general, the flow of this is going west. So the migrations went mostly from east to west, Spain, Portugal, Belgium, Holland, Netherlands Antilles or other islands, and Mexico. Therefore, if you find many results for your name, start at the furthest east is where you would start as we look at this and continue west, and most likely you will be following their diaspora. An interesting note is that typical Sephardic lineages will have their diasporas going east. So the people that left Spain were going east. They were going to Syria and they were going south and they were going east. But we are following a different type of lineage. We're going to be going west. Next. Okay, so important. Last names change constantly. First names did not, unless the family would get an alias, which was very common. And even the aliases, as I have been able to see, they were Manuel Alvarez and then they were Manuel Perez, or they were Manuel Perez and then they were Manuel Alvarez. So even though people did change their full names, and I'm talking in Mexico and in Spain and in Portugal, remember, I'm looking at this as a whole from the top. The last names changed with every document. I have seen in my own 22 abuelas that I followed, they would be born with one last name, they would be married with another last name, they would die with a different last name. Sometimes it was the name of the mother, sometimes it was the name of the father, sometimes it was the name of the grandfather, sometimes it wasn't, and it was just kept changing to hide from the Inquisitions. So first names is a good way. The great thing for investigation is that you will see it's a great thing for investigation. There's not that many names, so you will see the same names again and again and again and again and again. So that's with the first names and that's with the last names. It will just be a constant thing with the names. So basically you have to be very careful. Also, I know that I have many Catalinas in my lineage. Catalina seemed to be the name. There was a queen at the time and everybody named their daughters Catalina. Most of my family women are named Catalina, And in one generation that I was looking for the grandmothers, there was 5 Catalinas in this tiny village of my ancestors at the same time. So you have to be very careful. Don't get too excited. Document everything. Find your primary source. And once you find your primary source, then you can be pretty sure. Try not to, take information from the internet that belongs to another family, because the names were the same. Occupations rarely changed. A goldsmith or a weaver would continue his trade no matter where he moved to. So I don't care if it was Manuel Alvarez and now it's Manuel Perez. If you had a Manuel Alvarez that was a goldsmith, and all of a sudden you have a Manuel Perez showing up that's a goldsmith, that should perk up your ears. That should give you red flags. That is definitely something to look much closer into. Names are misspelled. Do not think for a minute, a second, that Jimenez, and Jimenez are not the same family. It is spelled in many different ways. I've had people tell me, oh, but the name Prado, it was spelled, my family name is Prando with an N, and Prando and Prado are going to end up being the same name. So please understand that there's a lot of misspellings. The old records are difficult to read. People wrote down what they saw. So, bear with the misspelling, which brings us to ES and EZ. Many people think that if it's ES, it meant that they were Jews, EC, that they were not. The last names were written with EZ in Spain and with ES in Portugal. Back to EZ in the New World. No hidden meanings. This was with all names, Jewish or not. I have listed the names of the Inquisition when I have found them in the Inquisition records. Do not be discouraged if your relative was an inquisitor. And I want to make a big point of this because it took me a lot of heavy thinking, discussions with JewishGen, discussions with people that are more learned than I. I wanted to leave the inquisitors out, because if it were me searching for my crypto-Jewish lineage and I found an inquisitor that I got to a relative that was an inquisitor, I think that would be very distressing. However, understand that I left them in because I wanted to leave historical facts as historical facts. I don't want to take stuff out when it's convenient. Many crypto Jews became inquisitors to hide that they were Jews. There's no way to tell who was who unless you can follow them out of their original location, and hopefully this collection will help you to do that. Just because they were inquisitors does not mean that they weren't crypto Jews, and just because they were inquisitors, it does not mean, except for a select few who we know who they are, we will find, and I did upload, for example, in Mallorca, I did upload an incredible amount of, I had all of the inquisitors. I did not want to leave it out. Endogamy was rampant. Men marrying their nieces, first cousins marrying. This is a normal trait in crypto-Jewish families. And in mine, every single generation married a cousin except my mom and dad. Every single generation. So I have what's called a collapsed pedigree. So please understand that this wasn't something odd or weird. Oh my God. No, this is what happened. And a lot of it also happened in the shtetls when you're looking at Ashkenaz genealogy as well. It happened in royal families. They didn't want to marry outside of the royalty. So basically it is just something, and it is what it is. Next. Okay, abbreviations, and so very important to have charts. And I pretty much talk about this every time I give a talk. I'll just run right through it. You will hopefully be able to go back and read the full primary source of the sources that I have put up, especially the information from Curacao, for example. There are books and books and books written that are talking about the background and ancestry of each family. I have not, and they talk, this could have been so-and-so who went from Amsterdam and then went to Aruba and then went to Curacao, and maybe he was the wife or maybe it was the husband of. I have not put any of those suppositions in there. That's just, to me, it's not a primary source. So if you eventually will have to go get your charts from the internet, understand the abbreviations. All of these documents and all of these charts and all of these abbreviations, they're up on the JewishGen website. There's abbreviations for, let's say, Curacao. There's you're looking at a document, there's abbreviations I've put up in for Portugal that are in Portuguese, the ones in Spanish. So just have your charts with you. If you can't find them, let us know. We will definitely point you towards the charts. Next. Okay, so in the JewishGen, I'm very excited, as I said at the beginning, that Crypto Jewish Genealogy made the big league. I mean, just to get it as an actual, I was so excited that they had Ashkenazi countries, and except for Brazil, and in the corner there, so Jewish, I had to show you. I am beyond made the big leagues, so I really had to. Next. Avrami, next. Okay, these are the descriptions of available information on JewishGen. They're all in English and Spanish. Some are very short. Others are a little bit longer. As I said at the beginning, we had to get this up. A lot of the descriptions were very small, but each one, it's in English and it's in Spanish. I retyped the information into the Excel sheets in English when it was in Portuguese or it was in Spanish. I typed it in. So you can read this in and you can read these in English or Spanish, but the actual entries in the collection are in English. Next. Okay, it's really important that you document your family history. These are the books that I have written. I started with my 15 grandmothers, Pyre to Fire, which I was actually able to document my family from all the notary records and everything, and I was able to document where they went as crypto Jews. Then I found that my mom had recipes still from the Inquisition hiding after all these years, and family recipes. I wrote that. I wrote how I found my 15 grandmothers, and they are also in Spanish. My 15 grandmothers has been translated into Hebrew, Yiddish, and Farsi. And you can always reach me at GenieMilgrom.com. My books are on Amazon. But more than that, the purpose for this is to tell you to document your genealogy. Nobody wants those huge vats of paperwork that we all collect. And I'm sure that our great-grandchildren aren't going to want these massive boxes full of flash drives. So document it. It's easier for people to remember. It's an important history to document. So please just start writing. Get on that computer and start writing. Next. Okay, that's it for now. And Avrami, if you could take this off. And I just want to mention a couple of things before we go to the collection. Okay, I want to tell you the type of, we will also have this up, the type of documents, of course, not fully, because sometimes I just took certain things out. We have things from the American Jewish Archives. We have some Inquisition, actual Inquisition documents from Valladolid. We have Inquisition cases from books that were written in 1893 by Ricardo Palma in Lima, Peru. When I went to Lima, Peru, I have visited each one of these archives. I've been involved in a project since 2015 to actually digitize the Inquisition documents. And I think Sally Ann Sack, she's probably listening here today. I want to say that she's been my mentor through a lot of this. Sally Ann from Avotenu. She has opened huge doors around the world. We did sign a contract already with Portugal to start the digitization. And right now, through the COVID, we are working on getting the feet on the ground. We've got the contracts in place. I'm struggling with Spain from the get-go. I've been struggling with Spain. I have gotten pretty much, we're doing a lot of green light right now with Mexico City. They're pretty open to this at this juncture. And I was stopped in my tracks in Lima, Peru. And however, in Lima, Peru, I did physically, they have been telling the world for the last 25, 30 years that all the Inquisition records burned. The last time I was there, which was probably my 12th time visiting the same lady, the lawyer, and everybody else looking at my face, and I just don't give up. So, you know, fine. Tell me they're not there. They finally admitted to me that they were there, that the Inquisition documents were there, and I physically saw the boxes, and they were, if something happens to me, they were really there 2 years ago, okay? There was only 70. But this gentleman in 1893 sat right where I sat in the same table probably, and he made this small book that I found in a used bookstore in Montevideo, Uruguay, where he documented, he was a Peruvian historian. So I've got up in this collection every name from the Peruvian Inquisition. So basically, there's a lot of things here. We have a collection from Cuba. And the collection from Cuba, I want to thank my colleague from Miami, Eugenio Alonso. He has been working on this for years. He writes academically. He's an academic. He gives a lot of information. He has been tracing the Inquisition of Cuba. We are nowhere near getting to the bottom of that. It's just very difficult, obvious reasons for Cuba. And if anybody does have a book on the Inquisition or dissertations with the names of Puerto Rico, please send it to me, and I will be so happy to put it up because I'm missing that. So we have specific regions in Portugal, like Covija, and I put up some of the Belmonte things. I didn't finish putting up Belmonte. That's still, we're going to be updating this all the time. We have from Zamora, Spain, a lot of information, and that was given to me for this from my colleague also, Professor Jesus Hambrina, who is a professor in Wisconsin, and he has spent a decade now doing this. So we have up Inquisition records, some, because remember, they're not digitized, from Coimbra, Lisbon, Madrid, Mexico City is very important, and Valladolid. We have information from another incredible book, Jewish Martyrs of the Inquisition, and Libro Verde de Aragón, which is of the region of Aragon. And the reason that book is so important is because in that book, it lists their previous name as Jews. A lot of controversy with that book, that it was written as an anti-Semitic book, to know that everyone should always know who was a Jew. But now, 500 years later, we want to know who our ancestors were, Jewish or not. I also, the Chuetas of Majorca, this is an incredible work. Again, a lot of Chuetas in Majorca, and unfortunately there you will find a lot of the inquisitors, so that you'll also find there. A lot of things accessed in Torre do Tombo, Inquisition archives in Portugal, and a lot of things from Lisbon. So I think we're ready to take a look at this collection. And I've prepared, Abrami, if you could make it a little bit bigger for me when we look at, yeah, okay. So when we're going into the collection now, and
Jeannie,
I think
can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay, so do you want me to explain where?
Yes, please, absolutely.
Okay, sorry everyone if you couldn't hear me earlier. There's two ways to access this collection. First, you can go to our homepage and click on the search button. It's right there at the beginning. This will take you to our main search engine. And if you click under region, there's a category for crypto Jews. The other way you can access the information is click on databases. And on top of the screen, there's a section for crypto Jewish. And if you click on it, it will also take you to the Genie Milgrom Crypto Jewish collection.
Okay, so we're ready. Let's start with the name Perez, because everybody loves the name Perez. I get a lot of questions on the name Perez. So if you notice, he's put it under surname. Abrami, can you show us the different ways that we can search?
Sure. There's a few different options. There's a surname, a given name, a town, or any field. And any
Correct.
field
And the
means that-
reason that that's done is that now when we show you, let's go in on Perez, we are looking just under surname because we had all the same fields on these Excel spreadsheets. So can you bring it up a little bit? Okay. So if you look here now under the name Perez, you can see that it's in the Amsterdam Sephardic marriage registers. It's in the crypto Jews, in the Jews of Coro, Venezuela. Coro, Venezuela was a community that was only in place for a limited period of time. Many people are very interested in finding, I get numerous emails for the Venezuela. So this name appears there too. It appears in diverse Latin America, El Libro Verde de Aragón. It appears in the Mexican Inquisition, the Canary Islands Inquisition, Colombia. So let's take a look, Rami, if we can for a minute, at the Mexican Inquisition, at the Mexican database. Okay, so if you look here under the Mexican database, you see that the first entry is Nuño de Perez, whose alias was Figueroa, and the year was, you can make it a little bit larger, and the year was 1657, and it says what he was reconciled and what they did to him. They took his goods, and the reference, Judaizantes de la Nueva España, also written by a very good friend of mine in Mexico, a researcher of all Jews spent her life, has been just the most well-known, Doctora Alicia Goshman, and I really uploaded all the information. Can we go up a little bit? So you can see that Perez is just, everyone that had the Perez last name will be there. Can we go back and go to another one of the collection? Okay, so let's go to the Canary Islands. Okay, so in the Canary Islands, we have these two people, and we find it in the Canary Islands, and you see, like the first one, he was burned in effigy. When somebody was burned in effigy, they were burning statues with the person's name written on it, or they were or many people died in the Inquisition prison, and they were burning his bones or her bones afterwards. By the way, there was no discrimination. Children, adults, men, women, it doesn't matter. They're all here, right? So Tomé Perez, this is in the Canary Islands. Let's go back. So if you were searching your own family in Perez, I would suggest that you do as I said in the beginning, you go west. So you look at your map and you go west. And that way, hopefully you will be able to find it. Can we go back? Let's do another one. We want to have some time for questions and answers. Okay, Abrami, let's look in any field for Cuba. By the way, also type names into any field, because if the alias or it's in the comments, if I wrote something about Perez, let's say Maria Suarez, I might have written in the comments, had a husband named Anton Perez, you'll only find that under anywhere, right? So let's look for Cuba under any field. Okay, so here you find the Cuban victims of the Inquisition. This is the one that was done by my colleague, Eugenia Alonso. Jews and Crypto Jews in Cuba was done by me. They're also found in diverse Latin America. They're found in the Mexican Inquisition, and they were found in the Inquisition of Sevilla. These are people that may have been traveling around, but basically that's where you would find Cuba. Can we go back? And I want to look for Toledo in any field. Now, you need to, I think it's best that you start looking at surnames and then you move to any field, because you have something like Toledo that is a name and it's a city. So you want to be able to find, Avrami, can you click on that? Okay, so when we do it like this, you find a lot more, and you see that it's just one record, 2 records, 10 records. So the more records that you find, obviously, the more prominent that name was from the resources that I put up. So if you look at the Inquisitions and Jews in Spain, 33 records, if we could take a look at that. So here you are, and we talk about who the person was. Now, this first one, it was in Toledo, Spain. I'm sure that we will find others whose last name is Toledo. So I think you get, let me see if there's another one we want to check out. Let's look at Belmonte, which is also a last name and a location that harbored crypto Jews. Until today, descendants of the crypto Jews. Understand that when I talk about crypto Jews, I don't consider myself a crypto Jew. I am not hidden in any way, shape, or form. I am very out there, and I am a descendant of crypto Jews. So here in Belmonte, where you see marriage registers, obviously that was as a last name, in the deeds as a last name. And then when we look down and it says students at the Rosh Pinah Jewish Theological Institute, if we can click on that, we see the list of the students that they had, when they discovered the Belmonte Jews in 1925 or 6, the London sent over, let's say, supervisors and people to see what on earth was going on. And all of this is coming from the survey that was done in London on the community. So here you see that Belmonte is a location and not a name. You will find that there's 2 ways to look at this: origin and residence. Why is this important? If you know the residence and you know, I am from Cuba, for example, that is my origin. I live in Miami, that is my residence. So why is it important? You really don't care where I live. If I'm looking for my genealogy, I'm going to have to go back to my origin. So while the residence is important, it's normally a passing thing for anybody, right? Any kind of genealogy, it's a passing thing. You're always going to try to get back to the origin of a person. Okay, Avrami, I think we're done with this. If we can take some questions.
Jeannie, do you want to show people the descriptions in English and Spanish?
Yes, we can do that.
I'll just click on, so whenever you do a search, on the top of every screen will be the title of the database, and it will be linked. If you click on it, it will take you to a description of the data. And Genie has put this together in both English and in Spanish. And it also includes how many records there are in total and what fields there will be in that database. So the English is here and the Spanish, and then down here you'll see the different fields that you'll find. And this description Genie has created for each and every single database that we have.
So and as I said before, some of them need to be a little bit more complete, and I apologize for that, but it is such massive amounts of information. And while I did upload this for years and years and years, when Avrami and I started talking, I had to put everything in all those little formats that he said. So I had the information, it was for me. It wasn't for anybody else to be scrutinizing it, right? So it took me a long time, and we rushed to get this on. We will now go back and we'll just make everything. However, the actual data is definitely polished. That's fine. What may be a little bit incomplete are the descriptions, and we'll go back and take care of that. Okay. I see
just a couple
433 questions, so I don't know. It's up to you to pick them out.
Sure. I think we should just call attention just to 2 other things. First of all, on the main collection page, if you scroll down, you'll see components of the data sets and how many records there are. So this is very useful information to let people know the breadth of the information that's here, of the data. The other thing I'll mention, as you mentioned in your presentation, are all the background and informational files, which you can access by clicking here, or you could click under the Get Started tab, click on Info Files, and then as Jeannie showed you in her presentation, click on the Crypto Jewish section. And this will be continually updated as Genie uploads information. But as you can see, most of the articles are in both Spanish and English. For example, if you're just getting started, Genie's put together a guide for getting started. This is both in English and in Spanish. So there's a lot of amazing material that Genie has contributed and uploaded that people can go through. Okay, so you want to do some questions.
I think there was one that came in by email. You may want to start with those.
Well, I think we should do, let's look at the ones that are here. A lot of them were saying that they cannot hear me. Apologies for the technical
I can hear
issue.
you now.
Okay, good. All right, so we'll try to do some of the more general questions. And you mentioned this a little bit, but there was a question, did any of the Jews who left because of the Inquisition go to Poland or Russia?
Rami, can you turn on your camera so we can see you too?
Yeah, I think the camera might have been the reason why.
Okay, no problem. Yes, there you are. Okay, some of the Jews would have gone. There is definitely enough information with the DNA that has been found in Ashkenazi Jews. I don't have any data on it. The most that I was able to see for, let's say, for anything that would have been Ashkenaz would have been when there was trading between Amsterdam and, let's say, Hamburg and other parts of Germany. And however, those that are doing a lot of work with the DNA have definitely seen that there's Sephardic DNA in many of the Ashkenaz populations.
A question about, is there anyone working on records for crypto-Jewish communities in Muslim countries today?
No, I have my hands full. I have a library with over 400 books that I still need to do. So I think that if anybody wants to take that one on, I think it would be absolutely wonderful. But, unfortunately, I have been just with what I have been able to get my hands on, because remember, this stuff may be online in some cases like Amsterdam, but it's not connected. So here is where we connect them. So if you're willing to take that one on, you should talk to Avrami.
Thank you for that. We're very pleased to be working on this. And okay, I'm looking through some of the other questions, trying to look at some of the more general ones.
A lot of people have questions about their own particular names and families. I think that you should play around a lot with this and then try to, build the bigger picture. I think that, as with all genealogy, you have to understand the big picture before you can understand the intricate details of your own family.
So let's do two more questions. One I can field. Someone had a question about how to search through the data. I think that if you look at the recording, which will be available on Facebook and our YouTube channel, you can see how we progressed from screen to screen. But you can also post a message on our discussion group if you're ever running into any issues and you need help just navigating the site. You could post a message and people will generally be helpful. If not, you can always email me. And we'll walk you through it. There's a question, Jeannie, for you about DNA. When people might take a DNA test and it shows having a certain percentage going back to the Iberian Peninsula, what would somebody do with those results?
Okay, so when I did my first DNA test, and it was quite a number of years ago, before I had been able to finish all of this work, I had very few matches. My husband and I did it at the same time. He's Ashkenaz from Romania. Our results came in on the same day. He had 10,000 matches. I had 3. So, I mean, serious matches. However, all of the DNA pointed to the Iberian Peninsula, specifically to Spain and to Portugal. Almost, I'd say, I think my DNA was a good 80%. And it also had some matches in Morocco and a couple of matches in Algeria, but I was nowhere near where I thought I would be. And there's many reasons for that. So if you find this higher incidence of Spain and Portugal, and you find it in conjunction with people that are from North Africa, from Morocco, I think that what you should do with it is to start I made templates. I made them in English and Spanish. They were short because people really don't want to hear the whole, oh, my abuela, and ta-ta-ta, and they don't. You know, I found that the bigger that I got with the template, the less I had of an answer. So I was asking people with that same template in English and Spanish. I was asking, I focused on Spain and Portugal, and I was asking them if they had any information on their family going back to the 1400s. In the beginning, I was asking about Jewish lineage, and I got 0 answers. So I stopped asking that because I don't know. I can't even, I can't even have a thought on that. So I took out the Jewish, and I went back and I asked if they had any information going back to the 15 and 1400s, because I figured that that's where we start seeing our Jewish information. So I did get back some viable answers. And one thing I want to mention, super important on DNA, is that because of the endogamy, the relationships are a lot further away than they appear. When any of the DNA companies tell you that you're a third cousin or a fourth cousin, it's probably a lot further back. I was able to find 3 matches that said that they were a third cousin. And I happen to know these 3 people, they're genealogists. And all 3 of them, one was at the 16th grandmother, one was at the 14th, and one was at the 15th grandmother. And all the DNA companies said that the relationship was third cousin. So understand that endogamy does skew the relationships.
Okay, thank you very much, Jeannie.
My pleasure.
So there were many people who wrote to say thank you in the Q&A. One person wrote that you will have changed Jewish history as a result of what you're doing. Generations of graduate students will have what to work on as a result of what you're doing. And so we are really honored and thank you for partnering with us and making this information available to the public. And we hope, of course, that people will be very successful when they're researching their roots in this way.
Thank you so much, Avrami, and for really, being so progressive to come out with this. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. I do want to mention that the session is being recorded. And as I mentioned earlier, it will be on Facebook, on facebook.com/JewishGen.org. It will also be on our YouTube channel. I also wanted to mention that we put this webinar together in partnership with the Jewish Heritage Alliance. You could Google that site. That's a very important resource for Sephardic roots. I'd also like to mention that Jeannie has very graciously offered to answer questions if you have any. You can visit her website at GenieMilgrom.com, and there's a form that you can submit, and she'd be glad to try and help in any way that she can. Finally, I'd like to mention that we have a number of other Jewish Gen Talks scheduled between now and the end of the year. You can visit JewishGen.org/live to see what's on schedule and to sign up. And so with that,
I just want to mention one thing also that you mentioned with the Jewish Heritage Alliance. They are trying to, or not trying, they have been successful at putting together many resources for Sepharad. And they are now going to have shortly a whole panel with Beta Futsot. They've been working very, very hard on this. You should definitely try to follow them on Facebook, follow them on Instagram, check out their website. That's the Jewish Heritage Alliance. Thank you so much, everybody. And thank you, Avrami.
Thank you again. Have a wonderful day, everybody.
Bye-bye. Thanks.